Oh, didn't see you there. Today... Alright, let's film this. Do we need the tripod?
No.
No? Okay. So, hey guys, welcome back. The first installment of the aux fuel video is in the description of this video. And that's where we installed the in-tank fuel pump for the Mazdaspeed 3. We're going with a 5th and 6th port injection kit. Actually, it's a 6th port injection kit. There's two 1000 cc injectors in this kit. In this video, you're going to see how we plumbed the whole front side and got low pressure fuel to the fuel line for the auxiliary fuel before the throttle body. I don't know what I'm talking about because we've been kind of... Let's start over. Okay, next step is to take the bumper off.
But first, I need another Chaparro. The reason why we need to take the bumper off is so we can line up all of that custom plumbing that we need to design and measure up, mock up, and cut.
Pop it off. The battery has to come out now, and the battery box, and we got to make a lot of room over here because this is where the aux fuel rail is going to go. So we just want to clear out this whole area here, take off the bumper, get access to the intercooler outlet pipe.
Gonna disconnect the ECU connector.
Take that ECU out of there.
One step at a time here.
All right.
Oh, I know what you mean. No.
Look at that. So as a recap, we got the low pressure fuel pump upgraded now. And it's disconnected just because, you know, we'll leave everything disconnected as we plug everything together. No real reason, but...
We already verified that it works by turning the ignition on and monitoring fuel pressure. Nice and easy. You want to be patient with this job. Alright. I'm going to disconnect the MAF sensor. This MAF sensor is known to have issues. Apparently the ground wire. I had weird air to fuel ratios last time at idle. I'm going to take the intake out. That 8 mil there, I got to loosen this 8 mil. I'm going to take the intake out. We got a lot of shit to do. There's a lot of work, man. A lot of unknowns. A lot of unknowns.
It's a shame that we started too late in the day, but at least we bought everything we need. So now we can just jump forward and just get it done. We have 4 hours until midnight, and we have another 4 hours until 4 a.m., which is going to be our hard cutoff, because then we'll have to get some rest for the next day's work. So we have to see how much we can do in the next 8 hours, which is a full work day technically. So imagine right now you've just come into work, 8 a.m., and you have to do a job. That's it. And if you're not done, there's still tomorrow. We're gonna have to take this throttle body coupler completely off, including the bypass valve, because that's gonna go onto a new fitting, T-fitting, some silicone coupler that came with the, well, Eric purchased it with a bunch of different silicone elbows and some...
It's gonna be tricky, but we're gonna do our best. This is the fuel line right here. The low side fuel line with the one with the blue connector right here. See that blue connection? Right here.
There we go.
The blue, that's coming from the tank. And we're basically gonna remove this, connect into here. Then we're gonna have the lines they provide us going to the second rail, out of the second rail to the high pressure fuel pump. Slowly but surely, guys, we're getting more fuel. Now we gotta take the bumper off. So I guess we'll start by raising the car and putting it up on jack stands.
And that's going to be good too, because we have to drain the oil to put in that sandwich plate so we can get a oil pressure tap. Yes. For our oil pressure gauge.
Yeah.
Because oil pressure is important. If you want to lubricate your fun.
Let's jack it up.
Jack
it up.
Let me get some jack stands. Mr. Bandsaw was hiding them. Oh, whoa, hello.
I don't think we gotta take the wheels off now. We don't. I don't believe so. You know, sometimes a lot of people ask, why are you doing this? And I don't have an answer. I just need to do it. It's something that has to happen at least once in life. Should be good, right? Just one. Gonna head on to the other side. Carefully. Ooh, something doesn't feel right. Careful, don't let it slip. Don't break those tabs on that bumper either.
Oompa. How in the
We're gonna disconnect. We're gonna remove this intercooler piping on the cold side. And we're gonna have to make some modifications to it.
Oh, look at those welds, that's pretty cool. It's clean. Clean.
Clean and mean. So I'm gonna start with removing these clamps here, and then we're gonna disconnect the plumbing at the throttle body and just basically remove this whole piece for now and figure out how we're gonna run everything.
So basically from here to the throttle body will be a custom setup, completely custom plumbed to incorporate a little fuel rail and injectors.
But what we're actually thinking of doing is basically we're gonna keep this section here, and right after this 90 is gonna be custom.
So we're just gonna cut this hose right here.
We're gonna cut it like in here, right?
And this is part of the JBR intercooler piping kit, right?
Yeah.
All right, so if you have a JBR setup, you can follow what we do to a T, and hopefully it works. We don't know yet because we haven't done it yet, but let's just keep going.
Yep. I'm gonna take off the bypass valve right now.
So one thing that just came up was the idea that because this setup here has a dual catch can setup, that takes up room in that side of the engine bay. So hopefully the plumbing doesn't interfere with that. That may be something that we run into. So just keep that in mind if you have like a catch can or like if you have like a methanol injection kit there with like the tank. Just that's gonna take up some space.
Yeah, we're gonna have to see if we can arrange all of the custom plumbing in a way where everything is clearing each other. I'm really excited for 25 pounds of boost, man, especially on this high flowing setup. Right now the setup flows so well that at only 19 pounds of boost, 20 pounds of boost, the injectors are pretty much nearly maxed out. Okay, take the bypass valve off. Keep the gasket in a safe spot.
Let's just put the whole bypass valve in a safe spot. How about on your dash? That's not safe because we're gonna be pulling it up to put the gauges in. So, why don't we put the bypass valve over here? Like that. Just like that, so that all the dust in the world can fall down in there and something will blow up, and then I'll finally have a faster car. Or I'll just do that.
Yeah, buddy. T-bolt clamps for the win.
Yeah, the catch cans are right there, eh?
Yeah, the catch cans are right there. But throttle body's gonna be on this side. Plumbing's gonna be on this side. So this one here is for the throttle body. So my worry was that it was gonna be too long. We're gonna make a bead rolling tool, because like, look at all this extra stuff. We can get rid of that. We can get rid of this gap. This is a big gap. This is taking up length for no reason, right? And we don't want to have it hitting the frame if it comes out too far this way, you know what I mean?
Okay, so I'm gonna cut just right after this bead. And the good thing about this particular fitting is this acts as a stop. When you cut round things on a bandsaw, it's gonna want to spin it. We need vice grips, buddy. We need some vice grips. That's exactly what I was worried about. We need something to clamp onto here so it stays still.
So all we're doing here is we're trying to shorten the length of this embossed pipe so we can get more clearance.
Like rip your hands open easily. Now, because we don't want any aluminum flakes going into the engine, I'm also going to sand this down with like 80 grit sandpaper, because you can still see it's like flaky a bit, right? We don't want any of that going into the engine.
Okay, so now that we have the edges all sanded down and smoothed out and cut the size, we want it to be as short as possible. Now we have to bead roll these ends here so that we don't have any couplers fly off. To do that, we're gonna use a little technique we found on YouTube. You have to buy one of these crimpers here, these crimping tools, channel lock crimping tools. You can see there's that little section in there that will allow us to crimp. But what we have to do is we have to cut off the head right about here. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. So now we'll work our way all around the pipe, little by little. You don't want to penetrate through all the way. And all we're doing is creating a little bit of a bead. Simple way to bead roll. That's pretty cool. You did a better job than I did.
The beads are rolled. Look at that.
They will work, I'll tell you that much. They will work. So you can see, we filled up the gaps here a little bit, and it's a lot shorter now. And it's just gonna kind of sit like this. Still gonna have to mock things up and figure out the best possible way, but it's gonna be sitting like that, sort of.
That's one piece done.
Okay, so you see that big coolant line right there coming out? What we're gonna do is we're gonna disconnect it from here, and we're gonna try to collect some of the coolant that comes out and reuse it, hopefully. And what we're gonna do is also disconnect it from the radiator side, and we're gonna flip the line. So the side that went to the radiator before is now going to go there, and this side is then going to go to the radiator, because we're trying to have it so that the shape is kind of more over to the right and to the radiator as opposed to how it is now, because right now it's just getting in the way of our plumbing.
Success. No coolant lost. And hopefully there's less coolant in the head than there is volume in that cashew bin.
That'll be fine.
All right. So we flipped around the coolant line here, and it is now rotated, which gives us a little more height here. We also lobbed off a piece of the shifter weight right there because it was interfering. We basically just chopped it off.
So now what we're trying to do now is we're gonna line this up, tighten it down to the throttle body, and then we're gonna work our way down where the bypass valve is and then out to the JBR cold pipe.
Yeah, so the plan is to have the bypass valve actually facing downward.
Yeah,
because if they're all in a line, you run into the frame here.
It's too long.
Yeah, so we don't have this much, so we're just gonna go like that with the injector adapter down, bypass valve, and then into the intercooler. Look at that. There's two little holes of love right there. It's gonna be spraying fuel down into them, and it's a cast intake, so there's no welds to blow off.
Well, the welds on the intake.
Had me?
You never had your car.
So we bought some thread sealant, Permatex, high temp, made for fittings and threads.
It's supposed to be resistant to diesel fuels and stuff and oils, fluids, so it should do fine with this stuff.
Yeah, make sure it's like chemical resistant. People are saying that if you use like the Teflon tape, it's not as good as using like a cream, because parts of that tape can fly off in your fuel system. Probably isn't the best thing, but what do I know? This is the first time I'm doing this. I mean, you have to drink Japanese beer when you work on a Japanese car. It's just, it's polite.
It's bullet.
It's poulet. It's chicken. Okay, this is good. See?
That's what it looks like so far. Mocking it up.
Look at that.
Give me this beer. Thank you.
Look at this, man. Ox fuel's going in, man.
It's going in.
Okay?
It's going in.
Don't worry.
I am worried.
Don't worry. Let's have a beer, okay?
I know you're filming, aren't you?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so this is going to be interesting. This is going to be a lot of trial and error. We're trying to make everything fit. It's a little bit stressful.
Yeah, plan more than one day for this, especially if you don't really know what you're doing, like us. Where's that hose with the bypass valve? I want to show them what we did.
This is the hose here. It's gonna pop into it with the bottom like this, and we're gonna have this on a slight angle like that. The pressure is gonna be allowed to be vented from the bypass valve from here, going into the inlet, because this is gonna be on a slight angle.
And this black thing here, this black silicone coupler, he bought off of
silicone intakes.
The only thing we did is we cut the flange for the bypass valve.
Yeah, the flange was a little bit longer. The tube goes in. We had to cut it a little bit, and then we beaded it again
with that little flaring tool that we showed you.
Yeah, little beater. I can't speak right now. It's late, guys.
It's good. It's good. It's good. Let's keep going. Okay. To recap, we had to rotate this coolant hose. We had to lob off, like just chop off part of the shift weight. We also noticed that this bypass valve over here, when it sits in there, it's gonna want to hit that little ground point there.
We're just trying to make it so that everything fits and doesn't rub.
It's tight. It's gonna be tight. It might be easier for people that don't have two catch cans like right there and the vents. Cool little fuel rail though. I like that. It's cute. That, my friends, is 5th grade geometry.
What I think I need to do before I even take it this far is I gotta put some clamps on.
Yeah, put clamps everywhere so you don't have to tear it all down from the resin.
Scratching up my bypass valve here.
It's okay. Scratches make it look like it's been used. It's okay.
It's not good.
It's good. It's got mojo. I thought that was a bag of chips for a second. It's like you're all like into this grabbing parts and then you just grab a handful of chips. Bypass valve is there. There's the outlet there.
No, it's not working. Everything's touching. Look at that. You hear that? That's the sound of
Okay, so there's the bypass valve and there's the ground that we're trying to get out of the way.
I don't know if it's bending or not.
So there's a ground there and a ground there. 1, 2, 1, 2. Move that one there, and then this little part here we can just kind of hammer down. So move the grounds on top of each other. So as you can see, there's this wire here, this ground wire, and then there's another ground wire. So one here, one there. This thicker wire was on that hole, and the thinner one was right there where it is now. Now we moved the thicker one to this hole here, and then we bent this part of the bracket back. The thick wire still has the same ground point basically, it's just moved over to the next hole, and that gives us some more room in this area here for the bypass valve. We still didn't have enough clearance, so we ended up just using the bandsaw and just chopped off that ground point. So this hole here, there was another hole right here, and this piece of metal extended, and we just chopped it off to gain some room.
Gain some room for our bypass valve.
And this is the piece that we at first tried to bend out of the way and then decided it was easier just to cut it off.
Just gonna sand down the same ground point here, just to get better contact.
And sand down the mounting points because those are grounding the engine as well. Alright, we're gonna end up with better grounding by installing the UX fuel system. So if you want to improve the grounding of your system, your whole setup, just go UX fuel and you'll have to take everything apart. Okay, bracket goes in, and then for the 6th time, we can put our...
Yeah, we're just trying to mock it up right now, guys. It's been a bit stressful, but we're trying to just slowly mock it up, get everything nice.
It is 1 a.m. We started at 4 p.m. We've gone pretty far. We've upgraded the intake.
You can hold the light right here, that'd be perfect.
I will do that for you, buddy.
Just like literally in this position.
Right there. What was that song from 20 Hawks Pro Skater like 3 or 2? It was like,
turn it up. On the rug again.
That one, yeah, that song. That was one of the best sounds.
You ready to go? Cause I'm ready to go. What do you wanna do? Baby, baby.
And now we have this for the Guardian Angel that controls the bypass valve and dumps boost when there's an issue. Well, the issue we have now is this boost hose is not long enough to make it to the new location of the bypass valve. Alright, so coolant line is tight. Bracket here for the fuel line is good and tight. We have an elbow going down, going to our bypass valve T, and there's space now, nothing hits. Okay, so now we're doing the part from the intercooler to the bypass valve T joint right there that we just put in.
If we can cut it, we'll just cut it right here and start with that.
How's that for an half?
How's that for an half?
How's that for in half?
Oh,
Look at that.
fantastic.
So it's about 2 a.m. right now, and once we get all the piping up, then we can worry about routing fuel. Holy shit, dude. So good. It actually fits perfectly. That's where we're gonna put a joiner right there. Right here. And then the existing JBR piping would go like this. Now what this means is if you were to do this with just off-the-shelf parts, you'd need 1, 2, 3 elbows, and then 1, 2 joiners.
Basically what Julian's saying is that if you're gonna do a 6-port kit, depending on what intercooler piping kit you have, you might have to do different modifications. Stick that on.
There we go.
So it's the next day, guys, and it was stressful last night because I was tired. We were all tired, so I was stressing out. But now I'm a little happier today. I feel pretty good. So
I'm so happy today.
yeah, I was getting really discouraged yesterday because I was tired. Anyways, so this is what we got so far. It's looking pretty damn good.
It's looking good.
Okay, you can see where the embossed pipe sits. We've shortened it, obviously. And instead of putting the bypass valve right here and then coming out further and going straight down, we decided to go straight down first and then put the bypass valve down here behind the radiator fan. Now there's a lot of clearance, so, well, not a lot, but honestly, it's not touching anything right now, and this is the only spot we can do it. And then the outlet is right here for the bypass valve, and it's just gonna go right into the turbo inlet.
And then there's our boost source, boost reference for the top of the
right here.
bypass valve right there. And that's gonna come back up as well.
It's gonna come back up.
The boost source. Basically, we ran out of boost hose, so we were thinking of just unplugging the Guardian Angel for now, just to make it work.
Still doesn't reach.
Okay, so we gotta basically unplug the Guardian Angel and use the feed to the Guardian Angel, that boost source that comes from the intake manifold, and run that directly into the bypass valve.
Yeah.
Until we can get more boost hose. Next step is to basically put the injectors and that fuel rail in there.
Yeah, this is all tight. Everything's tight down here.
Cleaning everything out.
Just making sure there's no debris in there.
Look at those injectors.
Set them down nicely.
Wow.
1000 cc injectors. Unos 1000 cc's.
Unos 1000? I don't think Unos 1000 is Spanish for 1000.
It wasn't Spanish I was speaking Eric. I have my own language. It's called Erican.
Ericanese.
I sprayed these out with some brake clean just to make sure there's no debris in there, and I sprayed the fuel rail out with some brake clean. And now we're gonna put a little bit of sealant on these threads, trying to avoid the O-ring seal here. This is Permatex high temperature thread sealant. They advertise it to be resistant to diesel fuel and oils and stuff like that and fluids. So we'll give this a shot. We're just gonna put a little bit right here before the O-ring just to give it a little extra because I don't want any leaks.
We're not gonna get any on the O-ring because the O-ring can do a good job on its own. It'll get all mashed up as you thread it in.
Should I spread it?
No, it'll spread itself as you're threading it in. Lucky you're spreading it.
Okay, hold on. Let me get my rag.
Yeah, put it on the dirty table. Let it pick up some aluminum dust from when we were cutting all those pipes.
Okay.
Ooh, it smells funky.
Make sure it's
It
clean
smells
there.
like thread lock.
Okay, it's nice and clean. We're not going to get any stuff in the high pressure fuel pump or the injectors. Okay. These threads are kind of loose, but I guess that's why we're putting sealant. So we'll just put it snug for now. We'll do the other one.
We'll tighten everything down later. It's thread sealant, so it's not exactly something that will harden like Loctite.
Yeah, you can readjust it within 4 hours of applying it, is what they advertise it as. We just want to take all the precautions. I don't want to have any leaks, right? Be careful not to rip that seal. Might even help to put a little bit of silicone grease on that little O-ring, just so it slips into the rail nicely.
Next video. All right, we got a bad fuel leak right now. It's pissing fuel all over the place. It's okay, that'll save us, right? Not that, the coffee. The coffee will save us. It'll stimulate our nerves and we'll be able to quickly react to the situation. All right, so that's gonna go right here, and it's gonna, basically that fuel rail is going to sandwich the injector, which has O-rings on both sides. So the O-ring, I mean, the injector doesn't actually like thread in or anything. It just gets pressed in, kind of like every other injector.
We got this super lube. Where do we get this super lube from?
That came with, you bought something. You bought something and we used it.
This came with the fuel pump.
Yes.
Right, the super lube. And we're gonna put a little bit of the super lube on the injector O-rings, just so we can slide them in and out.
You can also use Vaseline. We've used that successfully in the past.
Just try not to get any of that like actually in the hole or where the nozzle is, just on the O-ring, just to make it easier to install.
Yeah, do not gum up the tips of the injectors. Okay, so the mounting brackets for the fuel rail were removed, and that just gives us kind of more maneuverability when pushing these injectors in, because they're kind of tight, which I'm guessing they should be tight. There's 60 psi behind it.
Make sure these O-rings don't get pinched either. Oh, there we go. Like, how far in do I go with these?
Well, actually, when you tighten down the rail, tighten it down evenly to the coupler with the bracket, and then as you tighten them down, it'll push them as far as it'll go.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, there you go.
Feels so good to be getting aux fuel. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it's happening. This is the beginning of asking
fuel.
myself, when am I going to stop turning up the boost? Because this fuel system is good for quite a bit of power. So
Good thing now is like you were boost creeping before and you had to limit your throttle because you don't have the fueling for the boost you were creeping up to.
Yeah.
But now you have the fuel.
yeah, I know.
So now you can just tune for wherever you're creeping.
I know.
Good, man. You were creeping to 23 psi. You were creeping to 23 psi, and now you can definitely fuel 23 psi. Now keep in mind, 23 psi is not like 23 psi on the KO4 because this setup flows way better. So 23 psi is a lot more flow on this BNRS4 with these two manifolds than the stock manifolds and the stock KO4 turbo.
Crazy. This thing was in your basement for how long?
6, 7 months, maybe 6 months.
Took forever to actually come around to starting this project.
We did the watt box last week, and now it's just like weekend after weekend, just adding power to the. What do you call this thing? What's your name for your car?
I don't know.
You should call it Snowball.
My first pet.
You should call it Snowball. Your first hamster was Snowball.
Yeah, man. I used to have a hamster. His name was Snowball.
We're gonna put the fuel pressure transducer on this side here. So fuel will come in, enter this, which is just a straight through connection that goes from a barbed fitting for the hose into the threaded fitting to the fuel rail. Coming out, going to the pressure transducer fitting that allows us to put our fuel pressure gauge, and then we'll go do a 180, and then also to a barbed fitting for a fuel line to go up to the low pressure feed.
Oh, the inlet.
Yeah, the low pressure feed
Yeah,
to the high pressure fuel pump.
Yeah.
Just fitting everything up first before we tighten everything down. And these are the adapters that go to the stock fuel lines.
Yeah. These little clip things. So there's two of them. One for the inlet of the high pressure fuel pump and one for the outlet of the low pressure fuel
The
line.
other one right there.
So you see this blue connector here? That's the coming from the fuel tank. So we're going to unplug that, disconnect it, and we're going to put this connector in. And then we're going to use our barbed fittings and run the fuel lines that they provide all the way to the inlet of this fuel rail right here. And then it's going to come out of this fuel rail with this 180-degree fitting along with our fuel pressure transducer fitting. It's going to come out here, and then it's going to go to the inlet, this blue connector here on the high pressure fuel pump. So it's going to feed this rail first, then we're going to feed the high pressure fuel pump.
That's great. And then our fuel pressure transducer goes here, which is great because then we can run the fuel pressure gauge line all the way up and then into the passenger side access.
Do you have a big light? I thought you had that like big flashlight.
So we got the grinding shield, which is good for using as a fuel shield. And we're gonna disconnect the low pressure fuel line coming into the engine bay right there. That blue guy.
Spread it. And then, okay. Oh, look at that.
Smells like the right line.
It's got this little seal here. We can just put that aside for now. We're not going to be using this line anymore. We're going to be using the Speed Performance fuel line that's provided. If only I could. If only I could. If only I could. This is the connector here. If you look inside, you can see it's got orange seals in there.
So one of them will go onto this right here, and then the other one will go on to where the low pressure fuel enters the engine bay, right there. That guy. Dude, it actually, like, it smells so much like gas. Why don't we just light like a scented candle to get the smell out? Okay, so now that all the fittings are all mocked up, we are going to put a little bit of thread sealant on there.
So I made sure that was clean, but it got dirty again.
It's a little precaution here. A little bit of thread sealant. Just make sure that taper's clean, man. The edge of it, see? Okay, good. You also don't want to feed your injectors this thread sealant sludge, so be really careful. Don't get any inside the line. The fuel that comes in from the firewall there is going to go into this from the kit, from the Speed Performance kit, and then it's going to go to a 45. So that's the first step in our plumbing here. It's going to go like that.
This, I think, might have to go on first.
Oh, the clips clip together maybe.
I think it goes like this first. I think. Let's see. Yeah. See? So you put the little white clip on first, then slide this adapter in. That's how you do it. And to remove it, you compress these white tabs here, and then pull it out. So this has to go in first. But when you put this white thing on, make sure that the little tabs overlap the little ridge on the fuel line so it hooks it. You just make sure it's good, then you try to tug on it, make sure it doesn't come off. Your seals inside are nice and good. And we're gonna face it upwards a little bit like so we can run the line just above here, in between the intake and the block, and then into here. I'm gonna determine how much length we need. It's quite a bit of hose here. This is apparently E85 compatible, and we're running in-tank methanol, so just a little bit of methanol, 2 gallons. So I'm pretty sure this is gonna be perfectly fine, and we've been running it for the last like 3 years, so no issues. So it's gonna be attached to here, it's gonna run along here, in between, and it's gonna go right into this one. So it's gonna be something like this, and then this. We'll go a little longer just in case. Just in case.
Okay, so we're gonna cut it with some garden shears.
You want this cut to be nice and straight. So before we install it, actually, we want to make sure it's clean. No debris inside. This is going to the high pressure fuel pump. You don't want to damage the internals or clog any injectors or anything like that.
It's going to all your injectors now, all 6 of them.
Just take it off and then do it out here first. I gotta make sure it's all the way seated at the bottom. Yeah, I don't think that's gonna come loose. I wonder if some silicone spray might be of good benefit here.
Push the line onto the fittings before putting the fittings on those rigid lines, because with the pressure he's using right now just to get that on, you definitely like bend a hard line or like damage it. There's the hard line right there.
It's pretty hard to get on there, but it's a good sign because at least we know it's not gonna pop off. I gotta bottom it out. It's really hard to push these in, guys. I'm trying to bottom it out. It's really, really, really difficult. I'm in pain. I'm actually in pain. This one was really hard to put on because it's curved. It's kind of hard to push. There's a bit of a gap still right here in between, but you know what? It's more than enough. This one here, we were able to push this against the ground and just kind of slip it on. But silicone spray, spray the silicone spray inside the fuel line, make it easier to slip on. But for the most part, they're pretty tight, so you have to work them a bit. So that's one. Now we're gonna measure the line from the high pressure fuel pump to the outlet of this auxiliary fuel rail. We're gonna start by putting this fitting in here. Spray a little more silicone in there. Before the silicone evaporates, I'm gonna quickly try and push this in. Okay. Cardboard, put some cardboard on the ground, flatten it out, and just work it on. Gloves help for sure.
Now Eric pointed something out here which makes a lot of sense. If he had gotten another 45-degree fitting, he could have just come straight off and then into the fuel rail here. But
now I have to kind of like wrap it here, because you look back here, you have this 45, right? It comes out of the fuel line. Right? It comes out of the fuel line right there.
Yeah.
And then it wraps around here, and then it's going to go into the fuel rail from here. Right? Then you have this 180 degree, which now I have to wrap this somehow connecting it to the 180 degree, but you have this big section here. It would have been better if there was another 45 that came off, so it kept it nice and straight and flat and close to the engine.
Would you like a lunch beer?
Yes. I need beer so bad right now. I'm so Canadian. I need to get hammered. I don't even know what I'm talking about. See here? Back in there I've got the line connected to the low pressure feed line. It's all connected in there, and it comes out right here. Right? It wraps around here, goes around here, it goes into the secondary fuel rail.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, this 180 degree fitting here is going to be attached to this line here, which is going to go this way, around here, up here, and then into the high pressure fuel pump.
And so right here on this hole is where the pressure transducer will go for the fuel rail pressure gauge.
Yes. Don't want to rub it against anything because we don't need any leaks, so we'll cut it right about right about here. Okay, so here we have, I have it cut. Now it's just gonna be going into the line here. I can even zip tie these two together like that to keep some room for the intake, right? I can zip tie these two lines together. So now what we'll do is we'll remove this. It's all loosely in place right now. I'm gonna just remove this, pull this back out, and then we're gonna take this fitting off and we're gonna try and press the line on, which is gonna be a pain in the ass as usual. It's always once it reaches the second barb that it gets extremely difficult. Can I use this?
I guess, you know, you did it before you asked.
Oh, shit.
I guess you can't do that. A little buff out.
So I'm gonna apply some sealant to these threads.
Making sure to keep that actual seat clean.
Now we're gonna take our fuel pressure fitting, thread it on. Position it in the position that we want. So this is still in place. Perfect. Not coming off. Perfect. Okay. I'm gonna apply some thread sealant there. Thread this in. Fuel comes in. Okay. Goes over here into the rail. Comes out of the rail. High pressure fuel pump. We can actually start tightening stuff down here. So this looks like a pretty good spot, I guess, for the pressure transducer. Right.
Off to the side maybe. The line for the pressure transducer is going to go here.
We'll wrap it around here.
Yeah, we'll probably take the access from where the watt box went in, which is over there in that corner, into the glove box. Basically the injectors are unplugged, and that's fine because they'll just stay off. They won't allow fuel through. And our pressure transducer here for the fuel gauge, or for the full fuel pressure line, is in.
I did have to cut the back of the Corksport battery box to make a little bit of clearance for the elbow that allows fuel from the tank into the under the hood area, just to make some clearance, which is fine. This is how we decided to route the lines here. Going into the fuel rail comes in here, right? Comes in here, comes out of here, comes out here, goes back under the intake, and then took a nice wide path to get to the high pressure fuel pump so we don't have any kinks or anything in the line. And there's still a lot of room. So we're gonna turn the ignition on right now and make sure we have no leaks anywhere along these lines.
All right, put it to the on position. So as you can see, it's all good. Ignore the ticking, that's just all the little electronic fail safes and stuff.
We had some air in the system, so we had to cycle the ignition a couple times, but now we're rated at 64 psi, 61, 64
yeah,
psi.
so on the first cycle there was only 6 psi, and then the second was 30 psi. And after each key cycle, more pressure built up because all the air in the line was just kind of getting pushed.
Right now we have no way of monitoring the low side fuel pressure because we don't have the gauges installed, so I'm not too sure if I want to push the car too hard this week because we just installed the DW300C pump, and who knows if that pump might be defective or not, who really knows, right? So I'm gonna probably just take it easy on the car this week, and then next week we'll get started on the gauges, and then we'll be able to monitor the actual fuel pressure. After we do the gauges, then maybe the following week we'll install the split second controller, and then we'll start tuning it.